for you? Yep. I have a stand, but I think it might take up too much space. Good. Everybody situated? Thank you.
Anybody else program? Anybody else need a program?
You gotta do like you're at a ball game. Get your program.
It's programs. Good to hear. Hot dogs, burgers. Okay, with the words?
Okay, welcome to the indoor portion of our time capsule and Cornerstone Ceremony. Thank you all for being here today. My name is David Costello. I'm the Executive Director of Communications and Marketing here at Rock Valley College. That song you heard on the way in was I Think I Love You by the Monkees, number one in 1970, this week in 1970. So what else was happening in 1970? Richard Nixon was president. The Vietnam War was still raging on. The fates of the astronauts of Apollo 13 captivated everybody for several days in April of 1970. Here in Rockford, there was a newspaper strike. It was capturing headlines. There was a civic center. Talk about building a new civic center on East State Street. I don't know whatever happened to that because there isn't one on East State Street right now, right? So I don't know whatever happened with that. Right here at Rock Valley College, that cornerstone we took out was placed. It was placed to celebrate the end of phase one of the building project here at Rock Valley College, which meant the finishing of the first 6 buildings, including this building we're in, the Educational Resource Center, CL1, CL2, the Student Center, the Physical Education Center, and the Boiler House. While the 1970 ceremony celebrated the literal foundations of the college, specifically our buildings, our celebration today will be more focused on celebrating the foundations not associated with brick and mortar. Today we celebrate the people who made Rock Valley College what it is today. Some of them are on stage, some of them are here in the audience. Today promises to be both educational and fun as we look back at the past and look forward to the future. Speaking of looking toward RVC's future, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the 8th president of Rock Valley College, Dr. Howard Spearman.
Thank you, Dave. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We are not makers of history, we are made by history." Rock Valley College was made by history. Rock Valley College was made by some of the people who are up here on the stage with me. Rock Valley College was made by some of you in the audience here today. Today is about more than opening up a time capsule and dusting off some historical relics. Today is about honoring our history and those who have made Rock Valley College such a special part of this community for over 50 years. Today, RVC's past and present have come together to celebrate our history and to hopefully inspire our future. We are excited to welcome back a few of the members of the 1970 Student Commission who were here when the Cornerstone and Time Capsule were placed exactly 50 years ago today. I think you know that I'm excited about this opportunity. As a new president, seeing you here today, it's just a meaningful experience for me, and I appreciate each of you being here. I would definitely like to also recognize those individuals now by asking them to please stand. 1970 Student Commission Vice President, Glenn Hartgen. 1970 Student Commission Secretary, Karen Mayhew Liddon. 1970 1970 Student Commission member, and current RVC adjunct instructor, Larry Bauer. Thank you for being servant leaders and for laying the foundations for student leadership at Rock Valley College. I also want to recognize Mr. Jack Simon. Jack, will you please stand? Jack's RVC career began just a few months before the Cornerstone was placed in 1970, and he was here that day as well. Jack taught in the music department at RVC for over 30 years, from 1970 to 2004, and has remained connected and involved with the college since his retirement. Jack, thank you for all you have done for Rock Valley College. We are honored to have in the audience two current RVC students, Kalia Washington and Student Government Association President, as well as Annika Vincent, current student trustee. Annika, we sincerely hope that both student leaders will return to the campus in 2070 to witness the opening of the next 50-year time capsule. We always have to think ahead. In a spirit of giving thanks, I also want to acknowledge and thank my Board of Trustees for supporting this event and for their dedication to RVC and the region. On stage, we have our Board Chairman, Patrick Murphy, and in the audience, we have our Board Vice Chairman, Bob Trojan. I also want to thank our RVC Foundation Board Chair, Bob Stenstrom, and Vice Chair, Lorraine Logan, for being in attendance. Finally, I am also joined on stage by two living RVC legends. Mr. Jack Wolf served on the Rock Valley College Board of Trustees from April 1968 to April 1977. Thank you, Jack, for your service to our college and our community. I am also honored to be joined on stage by Dr. Carl Jacobs, RVC's second president. Dr. Jacobs served in the role from 1969 to 1997, and his impact on RVC is beyond measure. I could spend a lot of time telling you about that impact, but I believe we will all be better served hearing it directly from him. So without further ado, will you please help me welcome to the podium Dr. Carl Jacobs.
Thank you, President Howard. I have an hour and a half of prepared remarks, but the Master of Ceremony said I should cut it down to an hour and a quarter. So please be tolerant. No, it is just incredible to see so many people that are a part of our life, my wife and myself. In addition, viewing artifacts from 50 years back brings me back to a time that is very much the same as 50 years ago, in many ways very different than 50 years ago. I would like to take some time with you and talk about how this college started and the early struggles that it has. As a number of the people, and I apologize, I know you're not supposed to do this in giving a speech, initially apologizing, but I will for all of the people that I cannot mention or can't remember all their names, or people who just quietly went about their ways and helped to make what Rock Valley College is today. You know, the college started as a very, very significant part of a master plan from the state of Illinois, which included an infusion of money for buildings and for operating funds to be matched or at least met in some way by local communities as far as the establishment of the community. community colleges. Our community college was established with Boone in Winnebago County. Interestingly, a microcosm of the whole state of Illinois. Rural communities, small towns, large community city of Rockford, a big city with all of its complexities and all of its problems. It was a very different kind of a city, if we could just center on Rockford for a minute. It was a city very conservative, not very supportive of government-run things, a very family-oriented community. My late sister-in-law, my wife's sister, commented when she came here, she said, "Must be a city of sinners. There seems to be a church on every corner." I remember that very well. Well, this is really a story of how this college evolved to what it is today. Initially, the college was underfunded. It had advice that I'm afraid was more appropriate to a K-14 rather than a college that was in the process of creating new buildings. It initially was confronted with a legal challenge to its very existence by a citizen of Rockford. The president's secretary said, we weren't sure we were going to get a paycheck. But fortunately, and one could predict, the legality of the college was never in question. But again, it was sort of a little indication of at least part of our community that really had little interest in seeing another tax-paying body in the community. My experience as a new president was that I confronted people who said, I don't even know what this college means. I don't have any idea what it is. Is it a college? Other people said, we don't need another college because we have one. We encountered other people who in the community who said, we don't need another taxing body. So it was not welcomed in all circles as a college. I described to our faculty, I said, you know, we're sort of a halfway house of higher education. I said, we're neither a high school nor a college in the minds of people here. Our challenge initially then has to establish ourselves as a reputable, serving college that serves the interests of all the people of our community, rural, small town, and urban. And the challenge was enormous, particularly for an institution that was underfunded as we were. To give you an example, when the new buildings were completed, we didn't have money to move the equipment out of the temporary buildings to the new buildings. In other words, all of the equipment for the new buildings, class schedules were out, students were anticipating entering these new buildings. So moving van from the Mayflower Moving Company, a driver from the Chamber of Commerce, Everson, and volunteers from administration, faculty, students, employees. In one day, we moved that whole college. It cost the college pizzas, hot dogs, libations, and it was a long, long, hard day. We were all exhausted, but everything was put in place. But then we confronted an interesting problem as we sit in the CRC. There was no money for equipment for the library, chairs and desks and other tables, but no other equipment. So one of our faculty's father, Paul Caskey, the vice president of a company in town, went to his friends soliciting money for equipment for the library. And he was quite shocked to find out that there was very little interest in giving any money to this new college by some of the power structure of this community. But so we faced some rather financial challenges, so we held a referendum. We had the distinction, if I can call it a distinction, of having the worst defeat of any referendum in Boone and Winnebago County. We couldn't even get a leading citizen to head that referendum committee. It was an editor of the student paper who was a 26-year-old woman. And we learned that we had to go back to the drawing board. So we set out certain goals for us. One, we have to show that we can handle the community's resources very responsibly and efficiently as any business in town. Secondly, we had to show the community that we are needed, that we can fulfill various needs, whether it be in the way of educational teaching, service, cultural events, or even recreational events. The one event that we had that stood out was Starlight Theater. Starlight Theater was very different than you see it today. Starlight Theater were rented benches, bleachers from the Park District, electric cord lines running all over in front of the platform. Starlight Theater, actors, little kids running over those lines. Now I think back, I must have been out of my mind. At least we didn't tell the insurance company. The orchestra was led by Larry Galino, a very well-known, very talented musician and band leader, orchestra leader in the community. Then we brought on board Ted Messino from Boylan High School. Ted was a superb promoter. He brought to our Starlight Theater people from Broadway and Hollywood. Our production of Man from La Mancha and Fiddler on the Roof was of such outstanding quality. In fact, it was the only instance where a rabbi and his wife performed in Fiddler on the Roof, and it was mentioned in Billboard. And they did a superb job, by the way. We and my wife and I invited community people, community leaders, and I must admit we were quite disappointed. We invited a number of people. Half of them didn't even respond. And all of this was on my wife's shoulders to provide everything. College was not in a position to offer any help whatsoever. Eventually, community people did come. And it was very flattering that they said, we saw this production in London, and this is far better than what we saw in London. What a tribute. Again, part of the building blocks of reputation in the community of the new college. There's a number of various building blocks were essential in getting different sectors of this community having a positive experience on campus at Rock Valley. Eventually, as we all know, Rock Valley College Starlight Theater emerged as an outstanding facility donated by the Shostrom family. And I could just mention a little later about comments with Ben Shostrom related to this college. Then we felt we had to somehow acknowledge all of the hard work all of these people put in to put these productions on. They received no salary. It was a real commitment. So we had Starlight Theater parties in our home. My wife provided the hors d'oeuvres, prepared everything, and afterward had to clean up after all of these people. I don't know how she did it. She wouldn't do it today, I don't think. We did that on a number of occasions. Again, the strategy or the tactic was to bring more people to the campus, have some association with this new college. Well, what about this new college and with certain people in the community, a number of people, including, unfortunately, some of the counselors? They said, well, you could go to rock bottom, as they called it. That was what a number of people in the community called Rock Valley College, rock bottom. In other words, I sort of likened it to our faculty at one meeting. I said, it's sort of like we're a secular purgatory. It's someplace you're sent to and you have to earn your way out of it. Not a very flattering portrayal of what we did at Rock Valley College. So our goal was to build a very, very strong reputation for our institution. And that's where the building blocks came in. And I'm going to mention a number of them. Let's start with the music department. Eventually, we started inviting jazz bands from all of the college district high schools to our campus. And there was a contest. Take Jack Simons in the audience, very much a part of that. and it was a lot of hard work. More importantly, what we brought before high school students were a number of people, professors of music, people who were in universities, who were now teaching music, who were part of the development of jazz in the whole United States. Legendary people. In other words, at our community college, our students from the high schools were exposed to that they probably wouldn't experience at a senior institution. We were able to develop what was called a whiz kid program. We had a day camp in the summer for little children to be on campus for learning and cultural experiences. It was astounding to see all these little kids, future students at Rock Valley College, parents who came to this campus who would say to me, well, this is the first time I've been out here. I heard about it, but I didn't know much about the college. So these are just a few of the kinds of experiences that we brought to the campus. Then John Lundeen and Sarah Skaggs in the area of community services came back with the deans to my office and said, we experienced something called Center for Learning and Retirement, a place where a number of people who are retired can have experiences that are not presently available in Rockford. That was the start of the CLR program. What made that program so interesting was it was self-governing by seniors themselves, under the direction and watchful eye of Sarah Skaggs. Just an outstanding job she did. But let's go back a little further and look at the Student Commission. The Student Commission provided the kinds of student experiences that we couldn't, as an administration or a faculty, provide. They had control over their own money. In fact, their experience when they met with senior institution people said, you mean you can do this with your budget without anybody telling you what to do? We were never disappointed. What an experience in self-governance and responsibility that was. And it was all under the guidance of a man named Rudy Chapko from Belvedere. Rudy's experience at 19 years old was a little different. He was on a tank destroyer with Patton's Third Army fighting his way through Germany. Which brings me to the other element of student involvement, was a Veterans Club. A number of the services that had to be provided, we brought people on campus, were the veterans. Let me tell you a little bit about veterans that were here on Rock Valley's campus. Many of them were Vietnam vets, came home only to be despised by people, held personally responsible for a war that they didn't start. Being away in the military, out of the country for a couple of years or more is a real adjustment. You come home and things are very different. People have moved on, they have jobs, and you're trying to figure out where you fit because you didn't fit for 2 years or more. In addition, a number of these vets had the experience being despised, literally. They joined together and provided an event on campus that caught the attention of the whole community. It was called an Easter egg hunt. That they were up all night dyeing eggs and hiding these eggs on the campus, and the campus had hundreds of children looking for these eggs. So here are just a number of experiences that we had for people coming. Well, let's talk about what we did financially. We were able to convince the people of our community as the crisis of changing economy, technology changes, the old established ways of over-reliance, or I shouldn't say over-reliance, reliance upon mechanical technology was being replaced or supplemented with the need for certain electronic kinds of components. We were the only institution in the area that could provide that kind of infrastructure for them. We were called upon by the community to respond as today the needs of a changing economy, the need for a trained workforce, very different from the wonderful experience of immigrants that brought those skills to America. But the times were changing. And what we did was something very unique. We said, through the advice of the chairman of the technology division, the late Gene Streetmatter, he said, you know, Carl, he said, most of these community colleges and universities relate to the big companies. He said, that's where their emphasis is. And if you look at it, it was bureaucracy to training officers. And we said, our community consists of many, many middle and small-sized industries that are vital to the economic life of this community. But how in the world do we deal with it? I spent many hours with Gene, exchanging ideas, and what emerged was a different kind of philosophy. We said, we must create an infrastructure that goes beyond teaching just classes in technology. It has to provide experiences that are very varied. We have to create a culture around technology and teaching and learning that emanates from the college. We will be the provider of those experiences. We will be the expediter of them with our university friends. We will be the promoters for companies that have new technologies. We will fulfill a lot of different roles. Now that sounds easy. It was extraordinarily difficult. The first thing was purging ourselves of education needs. What I mean by that is we know what you need. We didn't know what the companies needed. That required what the military calls intelligence, information gathering. That a number of us spent at least 2 or 3 days a week going from company to company, sitting down with their CEO and wanting to know, what are your needs? What are your issues? And we learned a great deal. One of the first things we learned is how personality-oriented small companies are. They grew from a garage, a couple of machines in the garage, with a wife keeping the books, and emerged as very successful companies. So we had personality differences among many, many small companies, different experiences, different approaches, and how to bring all of that together. And what we created was called an industrial council as one of the strategies. All of the CEOs and the top management of all of our companies were brought together, and subcommittees were created where they determined where the needs were, what needed to be addressed, what kind of communication was necessary. And we provided the infrastructure. We brought on board Roland Westra from private enterprise, a man who had no experience in higher education. People said, well, didn't you want an educator? I said, no, I did not want an educator. What I wanted was someone who had experience in the private sector. I said, and we brought Roland on. His adjustment to the college and community was unbelievable. He just couldn't understand how we operated. But he did the job, and he emerged as the president of the Technology Association throughout the United States, as their president. What leadership role that was. So this technology infrastructure, I don't want to call it center, it revolved around campus-bound technology center, an incubator center of entrepreneurs in the old Reed Chapwood plant, providing courses and programs, workshops in various parts of the community. And then we said, one component's missing here. The concept of teamwork is now becoming very prevalent in companies. And so we convinced several of our faculty and other people within the administration to go to Dearborn, Michigan, the Henry Ford Community College, that ran a very successful basic management institute. They had Ford Motor Company as their customer, by the way. Involved hundreds and hundreds of people. Came back and established a management institute. Out of that came Nancy Sylvester, who taught speech. Nancy Sylvester had an interest in parliamentary rules and procedure. If you've had that experience like me, I had to suffer through that in college in a speech class. Not for Nancy, she became a nationally recognized person in the area of parliamentary procedure. Published, conducted workshops for not-for-profits, went throughout the country providing training, workshops, and she eventually became full-time in the Management Institute. I think of Dave Bloomstrand, taught English. He ended up retooling himself to teach technical writing and moved among many of the companies from Sunstrand to smaller companies. Then we noticed that there was smaller, mid-sized companies were now wanted to be noticed in terms of the area of international trade and business. So with collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce, we held a series of workshops in the area of international trade, how to do business overseas. The only community college I'm aware of that was doing that. I could go on for probably another hour just on that one area. But there are other areas of the college where I'm looking at our athletic program. I think of Charlie Behrens and other people in athletics here. Charlie Behrens looked at the players as part of his family. He and his wife even housed them when they were out, could not find housing. There were no scholarships at Rock Valley College, I can assure you that. In fact, we struggled to find money to feed them on the road trips to LaSalle, Peru, and all places. I can remember on a more personal basis, a player that Roosevelt Watkins came out of Chicago. His parents worked so hard to keep him away from the games. They said, you have to get out of Chicago. So he came to Rockville. And I remember talking to Roosevelt in the Student Center. And he said, what do I do now? He said, the basketball season is over. And so we had a number of long talks along with other people. Roosevelt, there is life beyond basketball. I asked him, I said, Roosevelt, I said, I'm a 39-year-old guy or whatever I was. And I said, would you like to see me on your basketball team? Well, you know, he's trying to be very tactful with me. I said, no, you wouldn't. Roosevelt went on, graduated from college, and was a high executive in the Chicago Park District. Those are the kinds of real successes that I look at Rock Valley. And people say, well, you don't graduate many people here at Rock Valley. And I said, you know, the World War II vets made a crack in that whole concept of you have to have this collection of courses that makes you a well-rounded, trained person. I said, Rock Valley responds to the needs of the individual. Because I'm a graduate, moving on. And I said, for others, it's a course in accounting, it's a course in marketing, it's a course in writing that makes a difference of whether they move on or don't move on. My wife taught in the developmental program, which we started here. That was a huge risk that we took. Most developmental programs, in other words, open admissions that we had at Rock Valley was not successful. I'll go back to that in a minute. The developmental program was not established to keep people out. And one of our board members was an African-American board member, and he said, you know, our experience has been with these kinds of restrictions are that it's a way of shutting the door. And I said, you know, Maurice, I said, the philosophy that we have is it's helping students to be more inclusive where they'll be successful. And I had to encounter, as well as other administrators and faculty, people who said, I don't agree with that. And I said, I remember my experience was, I said, well, you got a 127-year-old kid, and he wants to play football. He wants to be a tackle. And I said, of course he's up against kids that are 280 pounds, but that doesn't matter. He gets a chance. And I said, is that really a chance? And we were able to convince the community that this program, which it did under the guidance of people like Diane Keel to help people. My wife was a part of that program. And I can remember she had one student, if I could be that personal. She always had a party for her graduates again at our house. And this was a woman that would be a stereotype for many people. She had 4 or 5 kids, I guess. Some she didn't even know who the father was. She was all the things that people want to think negatively about disenfranchised people in the community. She said now, and she said, my wife said she was a bright woman. She learned how to read, and as a result said, now I can qualify to be in the nursing assistant program. And I said, that's a graduate. That is a graduate. And other people went on for PhDs. Our superintendent of our public schools is one of our graduates. I think of President of Alpine Bank, one of our graduates. I think of our Dean of Liberal Arts son, who formed his own company, Alpha Controls, with offices throughout the state. Yes. How do you people said, how do you define Rock Valley College? And I said, it's like a university with the top sawn off. I said, it has various schools, various people, various missions. I said, it's much like a university. And I said, but it's there to serve in a number of different ways. Then we took on the GED program. The GED program for the city of Rockville, or the school district. Our vice president, Pat Thompson, who I must mention. I asked Pat out of the faculty, as a math teacher. I called in my office, I said, would you consider being vice president of the college? Well, he thought I lost my mind. He probably thought it anyway, but he said, I'll think about it. He came back, and he was an absolutely outstanding person. He took care of the day-to-day operations of this college. We made decisions in those early days. I would not like to mislead you. We were called the Rock Valley College family. Does that mean everybody was happy, everybody agreeable? No, this is a college. I mean, they're very independently minded people. People with a certain amount of autonomy in this institution. But we resolved issues with a handshake across the table. We have built trust within it. Everybody trusts us? Absolutely not. But we have built enough trust among all of us to do the job that we were hired to do. The deans did not have assistants. The deans were in cross-training before it became a management philosophy. In other words, people like Kathy Baker, secretary, would take on part of the Dean of Technology's work. Not in her job description, but she did it. The 2 deans would change. If students were more overloaded in one area, they would take part of those students. So we really were very efficient in our cost. We had some of the lowest costs in the state. Well, I could go on, and I am leaving out a great deal. However, once I'm started on this, I'm sorry. But I want to convey that this institution did not start as with a silver spoon, so to speak, in its mouth. It was a struggle to win acceptance in our community, and there were a number of people, so many people I've left out today, who have built this college to one of its finest institutions. Today I ask the community, can you imagine this institution, this community without the institution of Rock Valley College? I have yet to meet anyone who said, no, I can't imagine Rock Valley out of this community. It is now an institution of choice with many people. A first choice for everybody? Of course not, nor should it be. Nor is any other institution. But it is not Rock Valley bottom, Rock Valley College bottom. And that's because of the work of an awful lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs, for those wonderful remarks and allowing us to, I was gonna say take us down memory lane, but I suppose I can't say memory lane at this point in time, but thank you for taking us down the journey that you helped to lead at Rock Valley College. I don't know about you, but I truly learned something today. I appreciate your genuine passion. I appreciate the fact that you were able to share in your success with the leaders, acknowledging them, acknowledging the importance of having community and building that community and building those partnerships, so thank you. And before I forget, I also want to acknowledge your wife as well, Mrs. Carol. God bless you, and thank you for coming. And Mrs. Carol Jacobs. And then we have Mrs. Peggy Wolf as well. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I always have to remember that, you know, I'm also married, and I have to acknowledge our wives and our partners, because I know that mine helped me get to where I'm at and keep me from being as stressed. One of the reasons why I can smile every day. And so I'm assuming that both of you are doing the same thing, and thank you as well for all that you do. Things we know about and the help that you've done as well, and the things that you've done in this community that we're not even aware of. Thank you. So I appreciate that. So, Dr. Jacobs, in recognition of your 28 years of leading, innovating, and inspiring, it is my pleasure to present you with a special Lifetime Achievement Award. We have here, and the clock is a symbol of the precious time you have given to Rock Valley College. The award reads, "To Dr. Carl Jacobs, in appreciation of your long time support of Rock Valley College. Rededication of November 23rd, 1970, Cornerstone. Time capsule, November 23rd, 2020. And as you can see, the clock is here, and this information is on the front and inside. So, I will put back on my mask, and I would like to present this to you.
Put my mask on.
Oh, the C word, right? Here you go, sir.
Thank you. That was really good.
Now I would like to introduce or bring to the podium our board chair, Patrick Murphy.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. I want to say greetings. My name is Patrick Murphy. I am the current chairman for the Rock Valley College Board of Trustees. I have proudly served this college on the board since 2013. It's been an honor to serve the college, the community, and to follow in the footsteps of the trustees who established the foundations this college was built on. One of the most important roles of a community college trustee is to hire a president. I have personally had the opportunity to be involved in 3 presidential searches and appointments in my 8 years as a trustee, Dr. Spearman being the last. We believe that the hiring will have a lasting impact on the future of Rock Valley College. A similar defining moment in RVC's history occurred in 1968. College trustees unanimously hired Dr. Carl Jacobs, who's here with us tonight, as the second president. We just heard a little bit about the considerable impact of his decision. One of those trustees who changed the course of the college in its formative years is with us here today as well. John T. Wolf, better known as Jack, was declared a duly elected member of the Board of Education of Winnebago-Boone County Junior College on April 19, 1968. Mr. Wolf would serve with honor and dedication as an elected member and chairman of the Board of Education, now known as the Rock Valley College Board of Trustees, from April 1968 until April 1977. In honor and acknowledgement of his many years of service and impactful contributions to Rock Valley College, it is my great pleasure to present a Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. Jack Wolf. This clock, similar to Dr. Jacobs, is a symbol of the precious time he has given to Rock Valley College, and the award reads, "To John T. Jack Wolf, in appreciation of your longtime support of Rock Valley College, the rededication of 11/23/1970 Cornerstone Time Capsule on November 23rd, 2020. So thank you, Mr. Wolf, and I will accept this for you.
If you have time, I'll get there.
I'll get you far away.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, and Carl, and your wives, and John Wolf is here with us as well today. And with that, I'll turn it back to David Costello. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. Thank you, Dr. Spearman and Dr. Jacobs. Who wants to see the time capsule open? It's now like the Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number of envelopes. Oh, who remembers these? There's a number of those in here. We're going to go through in detail here. Spoiler alert, we opened it already. Do you want to steer everybody here and watching live to our website, rockvalleycollege.edu/time capsule, where you can see a very detailed breakdown of all the items that are in the 1970 capsule, as well as the 2020 capsule that we're going to put in its place. So what's inside? For one, there's a handwritten letter, which is called Situation Report. Date November 23rd, 1970. Today is windy and cold. Temperature 12 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. Wind northwest, about 30 miles per hour. Ceremony placing this vault and the cornerstone will begin at 2 p.m. inside the ERC foyer, which is not yet completely finished. Goes on to name some of the folks who were there and so on. So that letter held up really well. Also inside, you saw this pile of envelopes. So each one is labeled. And then inside, they all have microfiche. Everybody remember that? Yeah, so this was a great student worker job. Gave this to my student worker to make sure she could get all that stuff transferred over. So like I said, you can find all of it out on that website, but a number of the things that you'll find there are college documents, of course, from the time, our college catalog, our student handbook from the time, class schedules. It also had some other historical documents from previous years, from the college catalogs and handbooks from the early 60s on up to 70 are included in there as well. College newspapers. So when the college newspaper began, didn't yet have a name. As you can see, the one on the left there, they hadn't figured out a name for it yet. But that was the issue from November 10, 1965. And then eventually, of course, it became called the Valley Forge. And that issue was released just a few days, five days before the time capsule ceremony on November 23, 1970. So the one on the right is from November 18, 1970. We also found local newspapers in there. At the time, there were two major newspapers, the Rockford Journal and the Rockford Register Republic. They eventually merged to what we know today as the Rockford Register Star. So there's some additions of other local papers in there as well. And of course, the famous newsreels that I pulled out of there. So what we had in there were audio broadcasts. You may have heard when you came in today, we were playing those out on the foyer. So from WROK, WYFE, WCLO, and a couple other stations had newsreel footage in there. You could hear the old-time commercials, the guys with the old radio voices, and giving news updates on what was happening. There are some from the week leading up to November 23rd. There's some from the actual the day of November 23rd. So again, all of those in their entirety have been uploaded to that website I mentioned, so you can go out there and listen to them in full if you wish. There were also newsreel footages that the local TV stations put together. So WCEE, which is now WIFR, and WTVO submitted some newsreel footage. We're going to watch one of those later. There were also some tangible items. The trowel that was used to seal up the cornerstone, and it's got the date and the college seal on it. There's U.S. coins minted in 1970 in there as well. So again, I invite you all to go out and take a comprehensive look at everything that's on the website. It's rockvalleycollege.edu/time capsule. You can see all of those documents in full as they were transferred over from the microfilm. You can listen to all the audio, watch all the complete videos. We're going to watch snippets of some of them here in a little bit. And of course, we're going to replace this now with one placed here in 2020 to be opened in 2070. And Annika promises to be here to open it. I don't know if a lot of the rest of us will be. So what's in there? Of course, we're putting it on a flash drive, which we hope they can plug in 50 years and pull all this stuff up. So it is loaded with stuff. Again, you can find everything out on that website, but a number of our college documents that are relevant now, similar to what they did in 70, with the catalogs and the schedules and things of that nature. Our strategic plan is in there, so that people can see how we were planning for the future here in 2020. Student profile reports, so they can see what the student makeup was for fall 2020 at the time. And of course, it wouldn't be 2020 if we didn't include our phase 4 reopening plan under COVID in there. So that is in there as well, so people can see how did the college adapt to the pandemic. So that's just a sampling of some of the documents that are in there. It was a unique year for what we do in marketing to have to try to market some of the events. It was a unique time to be planning events here in 2020. So we've got some samplings of how we approach different events here. You're going to see a lot of virtual events. Like we had a virtual new student welcome. We had a virtual homecoming week. We had a curbside RVC admissions event, things of that nature. So there's a full document out there that shows you some of that stuff. There's an entire folder dedicated to what we zeroed in on as kind of the top 4 news stories at RVC in 2020. Of course, COVID, 2020, and then of course each story out there is supported with documents, photos, videos that go along with each one of these major news stories. The hiring of President Spearman, of course, the tornado that struck campus right before the fall semester started in the middle of a pandemic. And so you can see all the photos, you can see the actual security footage video of the tornado hitting, the news coverage of that, and of course our Advanced Technology Center, some of the developments there, supported by news articles again, and some of the drawings and sketches of how that building's going to look. So all that's loaded in there as well. This is all on the website as well, if you want to dig in a little deeper. Photos. Abby put together a nice slideshow for us. So if you go out to the website, there's a nice 5-minute slideshow of everything happening in 2020, the year in photos. It's just sort of a sampling, but slideshow is on the website if you'd like to watch it. There's a number of videos, not just for those top stories, but a number of other videos that we've put out there. Our entire virtual commencement ceremony. So we couldn't have our actual commencement ceremony on campus this year, like a lot of colleges. We had to go virtual. You can watch the entire ceremony. It's loaded on there. Starlight Theater, that Dr. Jacobs talked a lot about. They did some really unique stuff here in 2020 because they couldn't perform like they normally would. So they did a whole series throughout the summer called Virtually Starlight, where they were posting things on their social media, behind-the-scenes content, lots of fun stuff that they did. We put a number of their videos out there. And of course, other things that are timely from Dr. Spearman and that had to do with COVID and things of that nature. We're putting some tangible items in there as well, so not just the flash drive, but we've got our little COVID RVC safety kit. So an RVC mask and an RVC hand sanitizer. We're going to go in there. We've got our RV bobblehead doll. There's one of only 300. So in 50 years, that could be pretty rare. Worth a lot of money. If you haven't opened up your bags yet, your little gift bags, spoiler alert, there's a nice commemorative pen in there and a commemorative flash drive commemorating this event here today. We're putting one of each of those items in there. Oh, I put an old cell phone in there too. I figured they're going to want to see how we communicated 50 years from now, so who knows, Annika, what you'll be talking about. You might just be telepathically talking to people then. It'll be like what a phone booth is to you. So that's pretty much the tangible items. And then videos. I mentioned there's a lot of videos out there that you can watch, but we wanted to show you some today. So this is just a little quick recap of the 5 videos that we want to show you today. We're going to show you the 1970 newsreel footage that was in there on 16 millimeter, and we got it digitally transferred over. It's a nice national news recap of what was happening in 1970. WREX did us a nice favor and put together something very similar here for 2020. Put together a very special highlight reel for us that we're going to watch. We asked students to submit greetings if they wanted to send a message to the year 2070. We had a few do that, and we're going to watch one of those that was sent in by a current student. We had an RBC alum who wrote a special poem. She's a writer, and she teaches writing out in University of Oregon. And she volunteered to write a poem special for this event, and we have a video of her reciting the poem that she sent in as well. And then we have a nice video that Jerry and his mass comm department put together that really captures the life of a student here in 2020. So those are the 5 we're going to watch. Jeremy's going to roll them, and sit back and enjoy.
This Tuesday, November the 17th, 1970, Office of Sound Press Super Photographer. My name is Chuck Faber, News Director, WCEE Channel 23 in Rockford, Illinois. The world awakened the morning of January 1st, 1970 to the sound of gunfire in the Middle East and Asia. In Vietnam, a 72-hour ceasefire ended. America's toll in the war so far, 40,000 dead. On January the 4th, budget cuts to NASA caused the rescheduling of moon landings and the scrubbing of one. January 5th, reports reached Washington that Russia was sending a heavy missile cruiser into the Mediterranean. Secessionist Biafra surrendered to Royal Nigerian forces. An estimated 2 million people killed in that war. On February the 3rd, Pope Paul hinted that he might consider a limited change in the Church's law of priestly celibacy. President Nixon on February the 18th proposed an end to the Cold War through a new era of negotiations in his State of the World message. March 17th, the United States used its first veto in the history of the United Nations when it vetoed an African resolution calling on Britain to use force to overthrow the white minority regime in Rhodesia. March 26th, an American diplomat kidnapped in Santo Domingo was released in exchange for the release of 20 political prisoners. March the 29th, Easter Sunday, Arab guerrillas celebrated by staging rocket attacks on American targets in the Middle East. On that date also, an earthquake in Turkey left at least 1,000 dead. The body of kidnapped West German Ambassador Karl von Stretty was found in Guatemala City on the 6th of April, about 3 days after he was kidnapped. An explosion in the service module of America's third moon mission almost cost the lives of 3 men aboard April 13th on Apollo 13. They made it home April 17th. Late April and early May saw U.S. troops begin the move into Cambodia. Purpose was to rout out suspected enemy supply areas. France exploded its second nuclear device near Tahiti on the 22nd of May. A devastating earthquake in Peru on May 30th left more than 50,000 dead. 6 people were killed in fighting in Ireland between Catholics and Protestants. The date, June 28th. 3 years after the 67 Six-Day War, first word that Russians are flying missions for Egypt comes July 6th. The first 90-day ceasefire took effect August 7th in the Middle East. A second one went into effect November 5th. On August 9th, kidnapped American advisor Dan Mitrione was killed by terrorists in Uruguay. September 6th, 3 large jets were hijacked in the Middle East by Arab guerrillas, more than 600 people aboard. The actions sparked weeks of civil war in Jordan as government troops and guerrillas fought for control of that country. Gamal Abdel Nasser died on September 27th of a heart attack. On October 5th, the first of 2 diplomats was killed by French separatists in Canada. The second man was later executed. 2 U.S. generals were held by Russians after their light planes strayed into the country during a storm on the 22nd of October. Fire in a crowded dance hall on November 1st in France left 143 young people dead. Russia reportedly blew up one of its own satellites on November 2nd, believed to be a test for the beginning of an anti-satellite system. On November 3rd, the first freely elected communist president in the Western Hemisphere took office in Chile. East Germany told West Germany on November 7th it must drop all claims to West Berlin if the country wants free access to the city. Charles de Gaulle died at his home on November 9th at the age of 79. And a cyclone and tidal wave hit East Pakistan on November 5th or 15th. Estimates place the loss at between 100 and 300,000 dead.
Hello from 2020. Thank you to Rock Valley College for inviting 13 WREX to take part in this time capsule ceremony. I'm James Stratton.
I'm Kristen Crowley. We hope to sum up what's been an incredible, emotional, hard, and inspiring year.
As you may have noticed, Kristen and I, well, we're not sitting next to each other at the news desk. That's because we're social distancing in the midst of a global pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic, the first case of this mysterious and lethal illness in the United States, was reported in January 2020. By March, it was widespread. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker announced a stay-at-home order, shuttering all non-essential businesses, closing parks and trails, churches and schools. On this day, 9 months in, no cure or vaccine is available yet. 250,000 Americans have lost their lives. Masks, social distancing, and good hygiene are our hopes to stop the spread of this virus.
We're all in this together. That's the message from many of our friends and neighbors in the pandemic. When it first started, people put hearts on their windows in their homes and businesses as a sign of solidarity. Months later, these hearts remain on windows throughout the state line. In the meantime, we're doing all of our best to stick together when we have to be far apart. For birthdays and welcome homes, graduations, and more, car parades like this one have become more popular. There's something about hearing those honking horns, seeing the bright signs, and some familiar faces that make you feel like everything is going to be okay. And we cannot talk about 2020 without talking about this. Zoom. It's the video service that made meetings, communication, and teamwork possible. Whether it's work happy hours or virtual weddings, we think we've seen it all in 2020. Without these video services, it would be impossible for us to see our friends and families, and we've been thankful for the technology and what it has brought a little bit of normal back to an uncertain time.
And there are heroes here. There are the frontline workers, the doctors and the nurses and the paramedics, the educators and police, the grocery store workers, and other essential employees. And what we've covered through this pandemic is the community will step up to support them any way they can. And there is hope coming with a vaccine expected to roll out by the end of this year for those frontline workers. Then a second phase will be designated for the at-risk and elderly population. Scientists say the rest of the population could be vaccinated by the summer of 2021. And that has been something that a lot of people are very hopeful for, because living during this pandemic and living in quarantine and isolated has been very difficult and challenging.
Yeah, even sitting, 15 feet from you right now, we've been doing it for the last, 6, 7 plus months, other than working from home. It sure has been different. Just take a breath and we'll get through it eventually.
Yeah, I miss being close to friends and family. I miss being close to you guys, and this has become normal and anchoring, and it's so strange still, but hopefully we can get back to normal soon.
Let's talk about what else is happening this year. We want to move on to another story that will mark history in 2020. In June, protests over police brutality and racism swept the country and carried over internationally. Riots, looting, and violence erupted as well, but marches and calls for change, along with unity, were the primary goals of those associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. The protests were prompted by the death of George Floyd, a black man who died in police custody in Minneapolis. The video of a police officer kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes quickly went viral. It sparked outrage and demands for police reform. And Rockford joined in on those nationwide protests. For most of the summer, large crowds associated with Rockford Youth Abolitionists and May 30th Alliance took to the streets throughout the city of Rockford. They demanded an end to racism and police brutality, and specifically called for an investigation into the police shootings of black men in Rockford. In early June, thousands of people marched in Rockford saying racism is real and present in this community, and it needs to end. Months would go by, that large group dwindled to a smaller group of protesters, but one group, Rockford Youth in Action, decided to take their experiences and work with police. They meet with police now, they talk about race and relationships right here with the black community in Rockford. While they say there is a long way to go, they say this is progress.
A tumultuous year compounded by a tumultuous election cycle. Republican President Donald Trump sought re-election for a second term in the White House. Under his reign, the economy saw tremendous job creation and economic stimulus. Though Trump is often criticized for his social policies and conduct, but he would lose that election to Democrat and former Vice President Joe Biden, with Biden winning several formerly red states, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Biden's victory could be attributed to Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. And Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is leading the state right now. In his first year in office, he led the charge to legalize marijuana in the state, signed a gaming bill that will eventually come to Rockford, and announced the largest capital spending bill in state history. That momentum stalled because of the pandemic. Illinois has some of the strictest mitigation orders to stop the spread of the disease. Pritzker was also one of the first governors to institute a mandatory mask order. Right here in Rockford, Mayor Tom McNamara is leading the city. He was pivotal in that casino bill we just mentioned and saw construction of the downtown Embassy Suites Hotel through its completion. Again, much of his efforts are turned to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic and to support local businesses that might be suffering because of it. Mayor McNamara just announced his re-election campaign for a second term in office. A Rockford promise we're looking forward to seeing play out comes as a scholarship opportunity for public school graduates here. The city, in partnership with RPS 205, announced in 2020 its plans to offer scholarships to Northern Illinois University to eligible students. The city will help foot the bill along with the nonprofit group Rockford Promise. Northern Illinois University will also work with students to help with things like books and room and board. Leaders say this is the key to Rockford's future. We want to take a moment to shine a light on some star athletes making us proud at the professional level.
It's pretty exciting to watch. Rockford native and Auburn High School graduate Fred VanVleet continues his career in the NBA. After winning a 2019 NBA championship with the Toronto Raptors, he helped lead the team to the 2020 playoffs and is due for a big payday in the offseason. Not only is Fred talented on the court, he continues to get back right here to his hometown, hosting different basketball camps, acting as a sports ambassador. Just this week, he hosted a Thanksgiving turkey giveaway for hundreds of families right here in the Forest City. Switching sports to the NFL, Boylan grad Dean Lowry is playing his 5th season right there with the Green Bay Packers. The defensive tackle helped the Packers reach the NFC Championship game last season, is a starting member for the first place team right now in the NFC North. Lowry was part of a rare Rockford versus Rockford NFL showdown just last week. That was when he had the risk of trying to tackle this guy, fellow Rockford native James Robinson. Rockford Lutheran and Illinois State grad went undrafted, but signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars as a free agent. He immediately impressed the Jags, earning the starting running back spot out of training camp. Yeah, flex, big fella. He set the IHSA rushing record while in high school. Now he's setting records for an undrafted rookie in the NFL, earning Offensive Rookie of the Month honors in his first season in the league. And we are really looking forward to watching their careers and, of course, rooting for them and for all of Rockford.
Fitting everything that happened in the 2020 year in just a couple of minutes, it was no easy task.
The world is busy, news is breaking, but one thing is certain, WREX will be here when this time capsule is opened again.
I'm looking forward to that. Thank you again for having us today. Here's to a bright future for all of us.
Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm proud to be a Rock Valley student in 2020. I'm a Running Star student in my last year here, so by now I'm pretty used to being the youngest person in my class, but that's not how it started out. I often wondered, will I fit in? Do I belong here? But thankfully it didn't last for long. The answer was simply yes. And as I looked around at how my classmates interacted with each other, I saw that they too fit in, and that they belonged. And as I saw my professors teach, and I saw their light shine through and their interests, I saw that they belong here too. And so, I belong at Rock Valley. You belong at Rock Valley. But the beautiful part about Rock Valley is that we belong here. It's not about just one of us being able to exist there peacefully. It's about all of us coming together to learn something beautiful. And since everyone at Rock Valley comes from a different background and has different ambitions for being there, I think that the fact that we can just simply get together and learn something and help each other to grow is one of the most beautiful, unexpected aspects of Rock Valley. We are a community college, which is mostly just meant to mean that we serve the Rockford area. But I've come to also see it as that we are a college that is also a community. We learn together and we grow together and we help each other out in such a way that everyone does belong and together. So I think that's kind of the most beautiful part of Rock Valley as I've experienced it. In 2020, we are currently learning remotely, which doesn't allow for quite as strong of a community as I've seen in recent years beforehand, but there's still quite a lot of kindness going around that I see, and it's really beautiful. So if you are wondering, as a prospective student or any community member of Rock Valley College, if you will belong, I would say you will, and because anyone can belong at Rock Valley College. Whether you are struggling academically or whether you are at the top of your class, you will find a place to learn and grow at Rock Valley, which is beautiful. So that is how it is here today. In 50 years from now, 2070, when all of you are watching this, I will be in my late 60s, who knows where, and the leaders of Rock Valley will be people younger than me. Younger than me in meaning that, like, they're not born yet, which is pretty interesting to think about. Sad to think about that the current professors will no longer be teaching, probably. But that's the people who are going to be leading us by then don't even exist today. So that's really cool to think about. And as far as hopes for them goes, there's always room to grow, but I can't think of anything specific that I wish Rock Valley could not be lacking in, because the community aspect is our core. It's that fundamental part of Rock Valley that makes Rock Valley. So I hope that continues throughout the 50 years and all the hands that leadership is passed down to. And I hope that we grow in ways that no one's expecting right now, and that we can be an even better, stronger community someday. So that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Jenna Goldsmith, and I graduated from Rock Valley in 2006 with my associate's degree, and I'm going to be performing a poem for the 50-year time capsule. So the poem is called Poem for RVC on 11/19/2020. We called it the RVC Creep, the waltz between parker of car and parkee. One, the already parked, the other looking to score the perfect spot. The lot directly outside of CL1 could have been Antarctica, a teeming scurry of frozen coats. The walk, a hurried shuffle, head down, uncomfortable to watch, is so familiar. Here's to hoping you had good boots. This miserable slouch could be mitigated, however, by a primo parking spot situation. The RVC Creep, 2 to 3 miles per hour, a stock really, both parker and parkee in on it. Patience, waiting, sometimes reward. Most times, though, silent resignation of a far walk. Every upstate Illinois parking lot in winter is the RVC parking lot. It must be. As a poet, I want to consider the metaphor here, the way in which my educational journey is a kind of frozen parking lot, or rather, a waiting patiently in the snow and slush to go inside CL1. Shallow metaphor. Before RVC and after is no metaphor, but the true measurement of my life. Today, I ask my RVC friends to supply a word to summarize their sentiments about RVC. They write, unforgettable, community, foundational, village, underappreciated, growth, fun, possibilities, emerge, accomplishment, enlightening. This is actually the poem, the first parking spot in the row, the brief walk to warmth. Thank you.
write, shoot, edit, repeat. It's kind of our model around here. Repetition teaches you. Practice teaches you. Making mistakes teaches you. And we give students a space to do that. To try things. Things that are crazy. Things that are fun. Things that are inventive. Whatever you want to do. But to learn from all. People that haven't been through our program really don't understand what we do. They don't understand the benefit of having a program going on, especially for those starting out. To just get that foundation in Rockford, Illinois, that strong foundation in the industry. I can carry it anywhere in the world they want to go. Anywhere. What we do works. I know it does. I've seen it. I've seen the results. And I love the program. I love it. I love the students that go through it and the people that are committed to making it there. 2020 has been an odd year, to say the least. While due to COVID, our facility is a little empty these days. We'll be back to normal here, hopefully, very soon. All 2070, that's who we are now. A shout out to you, and a shout out to all of our alums who I am even living. We put this together for you. A little sampling of the last 20 years. Enjoy.
Well, thank Jerry Levi and his team for putting that last one together. It's the third time I've seen it. I get to show up for the third time. So we want to thank everybody who submitted those videos that you watched. There's all that and more out on the website that I mentioned before, rockvalleycollege.edu/time capsule. I hope you'll go out there and check all of that out. And for some closing remarks, I would like to welcome back Dr. Howard Spearman.
First, I want to thank Dave for being the brain trust behind this program. So thank you for the wonderful work you've done. Great job, great job. I thank you all for honoring and celebrating what Rock Valley College was and what it has become. The 2020 time capsule will be placed and sealed at a later date, as logistically it takes some time to properly seal it back up. But keep an eye on social media for photos and videos of the final placement. I have no doubt that when college leaders gather to open the time capsule in 2070, that Rock Valley College will have had by then 50 more years of impacting this great community. Today we are both makers of history and made by history. Thank you all for coming. On behalf of Rock Valley College faculty and staff, we wish everyone happy Thanksgiving and great and wonderful holiday season. Have a great day and thank you again for attending.